There is a quote on this. It says, "The books that the world calls immoral are the books that show the world its own shame." Oscar Wilde. It's been an evening of many speeches. I do not have one prepared. I want to say thank you. I was in England. I was 23, 24 years old, and I met the people from Knockabout Comics who were having enormous problems importing the works of Robert Crumb. Because in England, we had customs laws which dated from Victorian times, which had been written to prevent the importation of noxious plants and weeds into England. And then somebody had added "or literature," which customs loved, because it meant that if they found a noxious book, they were now allowed to seize all books in that shipment, because they might have been contaminated by the noxious book, which meant that Knockabout, who were a very small organization, would not only have lost all of the offending Robert Crumb books, they would have lost everything else in that shipment. And I thought that was obscene. And I got to write, as Charles said, several sections of the outrageous tales from the Old Testament. And suddenly I was 26, and I was finding myself, rather to my surprise, having just, as far as I was concerned, having just written a few very literal sections of the Bible as a comic, having to defend this from a conservative English MP who was convinced that all of the majesty of the Obscene Publications Act should be brought to prevent people finding out what was in their Bibles. When I came to America, there were no strange customs laws, and there was no Obscene Publications Act. Instead, you had this magical, wonderful, pristine, glorious, glittering thing called the First Amendment. You actually had the right to freedom of speech. You had the right to write down what you thought, to utter it, to comment and write and talk about the opinions of other people. And I thought this was magic. We didn't have this where I came from. And then, as Charles said, there was Mike Diana with his zine, becoming the first American artist ever to be convicted of obscenity for his own materials. And he was, as Charles said, he was punished. Actually, his sentence was worse. And he was fined $3,000, sentenced to 1,000 hours of community service, sentenced to psychiatric therapy at his own expense. He was not allowed within 20 feet of anybody under the age of 18, which, considering he worked in his father's convenience store, was rather a problem, because when anybody under the age of 18 came into the store, he had to run into the back. And, as Charles said, he was forbidden from drawing anything, ever. And the local police were ordered to make 24-hour unannounced spot checks on Mike Diana's apartment to make sure that he was not committing art. Unannounced, so that he couldn't, they were meant to like just bang on the door and come straight in, not give him time to flush any drawings he might have done down the toilet. And again, I knew what obscenity was, and that was obscene. And that was the point. I decided that I was going to be whatever kind of activist I had been for the last 22 years in this country. Getting attention, raising the profile, talking in public, doing everything I could for the First Amendment, for freedom of speech, for kids' rights to read, for teachers' rights to teach, for librarians' right to have whatever the fuck they want on their shelves. I served a 12-year sentence on the board of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund and got to see from the inside how incredibly important the National Coalition Against Censorship is and what it does and how it brings together all the organizations out there that care about free speech, that care about kids being able to read what they need to read, teachers being able to teach what they need to teach, that care about us being able to talk and think freely. I would like to thank them. This is a huge honor. I'd like to thank Michael for organizing the event. And my only condition for coming here tonight when invited, and I never have conditions, but I had one condition this time. I said, I will come as long as Amanda comes with me and gets to play her Judy Blume song to Judy Blume. And I'd like to thank both of them. Thank you very much.